Dear reader, it is with utmost humility and a flutter of excitement that I present herewith a Miscellany of Hidden Habitations, consisting of observations, colour studies, small wanderings, and approved visual translations never before printed. This illustrated collection, compiled after many an afternoon's amble through meadow and hedgerow, aspires to illuminate certain habitations which have only previously been described as mythical, secretive, wondrous, and make-believe, and hitherto entirely overlooked by the more conventional naturalist. This Miscellany of Hidden Habitations was commenced, I assure you, as a most respectable scientific endeavour conducted in a manner meant to discourage any whimsy. I began with careful notes, strict colour studies, illustrated exactness, and delicate measurements, yet almost immediately the daisies insisted, rather rudely, on arranging themselves in poses far too dramatic for proper classification. Leaves refused to stop shimmering no matter how sternly I looked at them, and cottagers began whispering their preferred colour schemes, lavender mostly. I distinctly recall a thistle correcting my spelling, whilst a butterfly, a central figure to the composition, snavelled my spectacles. However, in the spirit of progress and truth, I eventually succumbed to my previously considered follies, and let my records collapse into splashes of colour, reckless scribblings, and patterned play. I may do with estimations and friendly guesses, both of which, I am assured, have long been accepted practice amongst respectable naturalists. My notes are, I confess, more affectionate than factual. I hope, dear reader, that you will forgive the creative liberties taken and the biscuits consumed in the process. And if some of the following habitations illustrated here do not, strictly speaking, exist, then I can only conclude that they ought to. In short, what began as science has ended quite hopelessly in wonder. Yours in questionable observation and continual reverie, Sophie McPike.
Day 1. The Dandelion Puff House. The morning was crisp with mist curling up like sleepy smoke under leaves. However, the dappled morning glow, reaching across the tops of scattered wild blooms, told me that it would be a pleasant day indeed. My hopes were high. The first hidden habitation of the expedition was one that I had heard little about in my prior research, although what I had heard of it really turned my mind sideways with curiosity. I trusted that my spellbound brass compass was telling me the truth as it pointed me towards the northwesterly direction where I stood. Alas, I'm afraid I still hadn't managed to get the hang of how it really worked, and I took a wrong turn. A particularly officious hedgehog, known locally as Sir Pricklingtonston, came across this intrepid explorer fumbling around with the jinxed compass. He insisted that I follow the small white dandelion puffs, and then stated, "In that house, time rings, probably no hour, twice together, at the very perfect time indeed, or probably neither." He then sniffed at my journal, which was laying on the ground, rolled his eyes, and muttered something unintelligible and meandered off. Naturally, I was intrigued. I called out to thank him gratefully as he rolled under a blackberry bush. I gathered up my things and took my route. All dandelions and their close relatives are actually temporal anomalies, and they are, in my entirely reliable experience, always worthy of study. Who lives in this tiny house, and why? I wondered. At one point, I found myself crawling through a meadow of wildflowers on all fours, my pochard box and journal slung precariously over my left shoulder. It was important for me to remain low when approaching wildflower areas, especially those which include the aforementioned temporal dandelion relatives, as to not become disoriented by their effects. Finally, I came to the small abode, sitting pleasantly amongst a small cluster of dandelion puffs, though not really dandelions at all, and some scattered violet-coloured daisies. Time there unquestionably ran sideways. I set up my easel and watercolours carefully, only to discover that the minute hand of my wristwatch was already ahead of me. I began my delicate painterly observations at 8 o'clock in the AM. But by the time the first wash of paint had dried, my painting appeared to look as though it was depicting midnight. I worked diligently until it resembled golden hour, and by then I was finished before morning tea. I suspect my teacup is still spinning. I repeated my illustrated note-taking several times as an experiment, only to find that the hands of my watch had been rearranging themselves in absurd ways this whole time, sometimes pointing to the east, towards my left elbow, or gesturing to my thermos of hot tea. I was able to interview a passing beetle who snorted, "They moved here a few days ago, or maybe it was a couple of years. Ugh, I'm always late now. Infuriating, it's entirely their fault." I hesitantly knocked on the front door, which was the size of a freckle, with the end of my paintbrush. The resident peeked out and remarked that they had seen me here several times before. Odd, I don't recall having visited this place before now, I think. "Time is fluid here," they whispered softly. "We measure it by wind size, scattered seeds, and root growth." They then peered over my watercolour illustration, and I saw a glint in their eye. "A very good depiction of time, my dear. How did you know that time tastes best when scrambled?" Here's a small list of my ponderings and observations about this hidden habitation. The secrecy of this home is clearly chosen to avoid any interlopers who demand that time stay consistent. Although, how does one host guests if they arrive after they've already left? I believe the sideways time of this residence might operate through the mischief of a dandelion species previously unknown to me. I have not seen this variety before, or perhaps I have, maybe. When was that? Last week? Personal note, don't look at your watch while in the area, it will lie to you. I keep trying to observe the light here. It seems to look like it refracts through the dandelion puffs, which makes the day look as though it is sunset, even though I know objectively that the sun is only now peering over the horizon. Is it possible that the resident has added extra magical qualities to the surrounding flora? Definitely very small. Reminder, ask Sir Pricklingtonston for tea on my next visit. Or perhaps I'll just leave it. After a long day, or maybe only several minutes, I concluded my studies, packed up my supplies, and headed back, looking forward to what I see tomorrow. Tooroo.